I teach at Cascade Christian Academy. I have been in Adventist education for 13 years now, and I'm not sure if that's why I got asked to do this. It's not like we get a list of presentations we get to pick. Yeah, Cheryl just calls and says, "You're going to do this," or "Would you be willing to do this?" And it may be that I'm in education that she does that, but I've been in education 13 years, and so we're going to take a look today at learning styles and how we can implement those and use those to better instruct in our Pathfinder clubs and help our Pathfinders be more engaged in what they're learning. I don't have a fancy PowerPoint for you, so you can just keep your attention up here for the next 40 minutes and we'll be good. If you took a presentation from my wife and I last year's on multiple intelligences, they kind of are related, but it definitely is different. Learning styles. And if you are looking for a very in-depth approach at learning styles, you can sign up for educational psychology at Walla Walla University. But if you just want an overview, then you're in the right place. What do you know about learning styles? Somebody raise your hand. Throw something at me. Okay. I'm going to go hand in hand. Multiple intelligence, learning styles. Okay, you're giving me examples. Auditory is one of them. Visual, kinesthetic. Okay, that's what we're going to be talking about today. When they came up with the theory of learning styles, they actually came up with 9 styles of learning: visual, bodily, kinesthetic, auditory, individual, group, oral, expressive, sequential, and global. And after looking at all that, that's kind of a lot to go on. So they came up with the three main learning styles, and those were all just mentioned here. That's the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. When we look at our senses, there are 3 of our 5 senses that are primarily used in learning: storing and remembering and recalling information. The 3 senses are the eyes, the ears, and the sense of touch. All 3 of these play essential roles in the way we communicate, the way we perceive reality, and the way we relate to others. Because one learns from and communicates most easily with someone sharing their dominant style, it is a great advantage for instructors and teachers to know the characteristics of these visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learning styles, and to be able to identify those styles in our Pathfinders. Okay? I'm going to relate this directly to Pathfinders. All right, so let's throw out then, what does a visual learner look like? I'm going to read through my list. If you want to take notes on it, you're more than welcome to. If you think of something you can add to it when I'm done, we're going to do that. So our visual learner, they sometimes stray during verbal activities. They write things down or take notes on what they see. They observe rather than talking or acting. They like to read. They like descriptions. They like to visualize in detail. I am going fast for you, but we have little time. We'll come back we'll kind of come back and see these again. Usually, a visual learner is a good speller, and they recognize words by sight. A visual learner memorizes by seeing graphics and pictures. A visual learner finds verbal instructions difficult. They need a visual aid. A visual learner remembers faces, but they forget names. I can relate to that. A visual learner uses advanced planning. They make lists. They doodle. They stare. They find something to watch. A visual learner is meticulous and neat in appearance. They enjoy movies, dramas, art, and other visual presentations. They use words such as see and look. That's the list I have for visual learner. Now, as we're looking at these and thinking about them, I say, I can pick things out where like, oh, that's me. Yeah. Oh, no, that doesn't work for me. And then I look at auditory and think, okay, yeah. No, yes. And then I look at kinesthetic and say, oh, definitely me. And then I look at the next description and like, no, that's not me at all. So I think there's combinations for sure. I mean, you're not definitely one learning style or the other. And definitely, when we look at our Pathfinders, you can pick it out, what their learning style is, their dominant learning style, and then the others kind of fall in. Is there anything you wanted to add to our visual list that came to your mind as I was reading through that and you're like, oh. No? Okay, let's move on. Auditory. What's the auditory learner look like? They are easily distracted by noises. True. They learn through verbal instruction. Makes sense. They enjoy listening activities, but can't wait to speak. They like to be read to. So if I look at my 4 children, I have 2 boys and 2 girls, I think it has to do some with age. Because my older 3, as they grow older, they like being read to more. My youngest one will read me this book, but she hands me the book, I start the first sentence, and she's gone. Does that mean she's not an auditory learner? I don't know, maybe it's her attention span. She's not there yet. But you can see this in Pathfinders. What Pathfinders like to be read to. Also, an auditory learner uses a phonic approach to spelling. They memorize by auditory repetition. They whisper to themselves while they are reading, and they enjoy dialogue. They remember names, but forget faces. They talk out problems. They often hum or sing. They believe that matching clothes are not important. My wife would say that fits me. Especially when I dress the kids. She's like, what were you thinking? Like, shirt and pants, it works. No, it doesn't. An auditory learner enjoys music more than art. And they use words such as listen and hear. So our visual learner uses the words see and look. Auditory learner uses listen and hear. Anything to add? Auditory. Let's take a look at our bodily kinesthetic learner. This learner fidgets, taps pencil or their foot while studying. They solve problems by physically working through them. They will try new things, touching things, feeling things, and manipulating things. The kinesthetic learner they're not about reading. Reading is not a priority. They would rather be doing. I have a lot of kids in that spot today. They want to be doing, and I think Pathfinders is perfect for that. The kinesthetic learner is a poor speller. They write words to determine if they feel right. They memorize by handling objects. They learn best by demonstrations. They like to touch people when talking to them. They remember by association. They express emotions physically. They use their hands while talking. They dress for comfort. They respond to music by physical movement. They use words such as get and take. So what do you think? You know which one you are? Visual, auditory, kinesthetic. Okay? Now, I'd like to take a look at this. What are some ideas, suggested learning aids for these learning styles? What can we do for them? We're going to go through this, and then we're going to pick activities in Pathfinders, maybe an honor, and decide how can we present that We'll break up into groups and decide how can we present that honor, taking a look at keeping all the learning styles in mind so that we're not just targeting one, we want everybody to be engaged. All right, what can we do for the visual learner? We can use guided imagery. We can help them form a picture in their mind. We can have them take notes. We can have the visual learner visually spelling words. We can use cue words for them. They use notebooks, color codes, study cards. We can have them have a pen and a pad, and they just doodle to stay focused. This helps the visual learner. Using movies, YouTube, watching the information, PowerPoint. This helps the visual learner. Use written directions, charts, graphs, maps. Demonstrate through drawings and exhibits. Visual learner needs a quiet environment. That's going to be a hard one in our club. For some of you, it's just not a quiet environment. You got kids coming together. It's not. So what can you do for that learner then? Focus on visualizing. And also for the visual learner, make lists or use a planner. Okay? Some strategies for helping the visual learner. Now, auditory learner, some things that we can do for them. We can use auditory tapes or videos also, sound. Speakers. Say the words out loud to them. Say the instructions. Make up rhythms or poems, songs. Reading aloud. A visual learner also often encourage talking to yourself. Or an auditory learner, that's where we are. Encourage talking to yourself. I had to share this with you. I had a student the other day. I was getting after them for talking in class, okay? I said, you need to stop talking. I'm trying to instruct. He's in 7th grade. He raised his hand and said, teacher, I wasn't talking. I was just talking to myself. I didn't know what else to say. I wasn't talking. I was just talking to myself. Well, it was helping him learn, but it was disrupting class, and I didn't know how to teach him. The auditory learner will repeat things orally to help remember it. They use rhythm to remember things. They like to have discussions, oral discussions. You can use drama or theater for the auditory learner. Use mnemonics, listen to music, repeat the instructions orally, use a device to record the instructions to replay it. So those help the auditory learner. And you can kind of see in some places there's a little bit of overlap, like the visual. Because with the visual, we often have sound too. So if you have it on a PowerPoint, if you have it on the screen, do you have sound to it? If you do, then you're hitting the visual and the auditory learner. All right, kinesthetic. How can we reach these learners? These learners like to be moving, like to pace or walk while studying information. They like to be hands-on, physically doing it. They practice by repeated motion. The kinesthetic learner will write and say lists repeatedly while moving. The use of role play helps them. Exercise during the instruction or in between pieces of the instructions. Get them moving. Drawing. Write on surfaces with their finger. Manipulating a stress ball while studying information. The kinesthetic learner also, it helps if they are interacting physically. They write and say the instructions for them can be useful. The use of mnemonics, rhymes, poems, lyrics, these are all helpful information for the kinesthetic learner. They associate feelings with concept information. They need to be comfortable. That has to do with, remember we talked about their dress. How do they dress? They dress to be comfortable, not stylish, not formal. It's comfort. So if they feel comfortable, they're going to be more apt to learn what they're being presented. Visualize and verbalize instructions. And also the use of a day planner can help the kinesthetic learner because they're physically writing down information. So when I think about these now, and how it applies to Pathfinders, well, right off, I look at our Pathfinder program and I think, you know, Pathfinders is actually a pretty good setup to cover all of these areas. We're hands-on, we're visual, we're auditory, we give instructions. And so we can adapt and make sure, the idea though, is when we're giving our instruction in our honors, we can use this in classwork, keep this in mind. These areas of learning, if we can touch on all of them, then our Pathfinders are going to be more engaged. They're going to gain a lot more out of what we're presenting to them. They're going to be more interested in it, they're going to be more engaged, and they're going to gain a lot more from the honor instruction, from the classwork, and you could even tie this into PBE, learning the Bible. You're going to have to be a little more creative, but Pathfinders are creative. We can do that. So, I'd like you to get in groups now of, what's our time? We're doing okay. Get in groups of 4 or 5, and I want you to, I'm going to pick an honor for you, okay? We're all going to do the same honor the first time through so that we can kind of, and then we're going to let you choose an honor that you're going to think of ways of teaching that honor, presenting that honor where you can hit on all the learning styles and make sure all the Pathfinders, no matter what their learning style, they're going to be engaged and they're going to be gaining something from that honor. So our first honor we're going to pick is, let's do the not honor. Okay? Everybody's got to do the not honor. It's like, yeah, I think when I was 8 years old, I got to start Pathfinders. I haven't quit since. I was 8 years old, and I got to start because my dad joined Pathfinders as a counselor, so I was kind of a staff brat coming in. Couldn't work on classwork yet, but I got to do honors, and knots was my first honor. I do not remember them all. Did not do that. But that was my first honor. So gather around. Just group up, 4 or 5. I'm going to give you 5 or 10 minutes. Think about these 3 learning styles. How can you teach knots with all these learning styles in mind? Auditory, visual, kinesthetic. All right. If I have your attention back up here. Just kind of going to go through the groups real quick. I'd like you to give a brief description of how this is going to look, that you're covering all 3 learning styles while teaching the not honor.
Well, for the not honor, we said that it's unique because basically when you teach knots, it's visual, it's auditory, and kinesthetic all in one. And so we thought that you didn't have to necessarily add to that specific teaching of knots, but what we thought would be practical is teaching the kids what the knots are useful for, because I think that's why we often forget them, is because we don't remember why a sheep shank is useful, and we never have to tie a rope off. So, you know, we talked about maybe we could have a presentation or have, you know, say take the kids rock climbing where they actually get to use some of these knots in real life.
I like that, implementation. What do you guys come up with?
Well, our club has a video, so that incorporates all the things, you know, the kinesthetic, is it the actual tying of the knots, There's a song that gets stuck in your head about, like, oh, okay, so, and then the video shows each step, so the visual, and then the instruction is the auditory.
I don't know what to say. We were also talking about, having a video so that they could see it and hear it as well, and then them doing the knots. But also just giving them, kind of making a little game out of it too, and just giving them rope and like, okay, we want a jump rope, but they're so short, so they have to tie the different knots to do that. So that was kind of an aesthetic thing to get that into it. And
Yeah, I know for some clubs, the knot honor can get monotonous. Um, we had a club that I was part of, and it was more than one, where the knot honor, well, we've been doing it for 3 years. The kids don't have their honor yet. They just can't remember the knots. So sharing these ideas maybe can help.
We said a lot of the same stuff that's already been said. I think the biggest thing would just be to, like, if you are playing a video, to play it on repeat, so it keeps going, so that when you're working in smaller groups, the kids that need to see it can keep seeing it. That make sense?
So yeah, similar to everybody else, a lot of the same stuff. Main thing, put out a couple foot of rope on everybody's desk or have it in their hands so they can play with it. Get the thing on the board. What's that online? Yeah, the online app that shows the rope. But at the same time, that one doesn't show you manipulating the rope. It only shows the rope. So I would also have a person tying the knots up front at the same time. So you're hitting every aspect at that point.
Multiple ways.
Basically, what the first person said, we were thinking it kind of works all together, but we just make sure everybody has a rope as teaching. So while the person is teaching, everybody has a rope and can be attempting to do it as it's spoken through and showed up front.
I think it's important to have different color ropes, like 2 different colors of ropes. Also, I like the knot cards that the Advent Source has. They've got laminated 20 knots, like 1 or 2 on a side, and each child could have one of those. So there's some are faster, so the ones who you need to help, they can keep going beyond what you're teaching to, or put the ones who do it really fast or know it, couple them with those who are having a hard time, so they learn to teach the knot to someone who's it's harder to understand. Yeah. Yeah. Also, coupling the knot tying with something like the lashing honor. So, using, like making a rope ladder or lashing boards together or logs together to make a miniature raft or something, so they see, oh, I can do this to make this, or a tripod for the campfire or whatever. Also, the Desmond Doss story about how he developed the rope to let the wounded soldiers down the escarpment, that was a real practical thing. How when he was learning to tie knots, they had one long rope and they didn't have a rope for him, so he learned to tie in the middle, and that's how he came up with the double bow line to be able to let the people down. So.
I do not. So One thing a previous Pendleton director had done was make a relay race out of the knot tying honor, where they had kids lined up and they had to run to the other end of the gym, tie the knot they were assigned, and there would be someone down there to help them out and run back before the next kid can go run tie the next knot. So that'd be great for a kinesthetic learner. Any kids have energy, so that's going to be something for them. We've talked about videos or just demonstrations of the knots is going to take care of your visual kids. And then Sherry had a great idea with just looking up YouTube. You know, there's usually a song or a pattern that goes with a knot, and listening to songs that guide them through tying a knot.
So with a rope in each person's hand, I've used a 3D animated knots program. So there's both the visual and the audio, and the kids who are kinesthetic can try to tie the knots as they're being shown on the screen or in person. We've done the relay races, as well as the practical use, combining honors together.
Somebody back here? Are you guys part of the group in front of you? Is there anybody else that wanted to add to that? Time is almost up, so I didn't get to do as much as I wanted to. But let's summarize. For the knot honor, reaching all the learning styles. We have hands-on. We want the rope in their hand. I heard that multiple times. Make it practical. Get out and use the knots in their intended purpose, either if it's lashing, building something, if it's rock climbing. If they're actually using the knot, how much longer are they going to remember it? The knots that I still know today from when I took the knot honor are the knots that I've used in rock climbing. It's important, okay? Make it visual. A lot of you were mentioning a video or an app that you can get. I have seen the app, the 3D app, that actually shows the ropes going in and over, and you can pause it and restart it, move it back. Where's that rope going? And it's in different colors, so you can see where it's going. And they're always coming up with something new. So check that out. And then what else did I hear? Make games. Use games. Kids love games. So when you use a game to teach the knots, relays, they're going to remember it. Music. That's going to hit our auditory learners. Using music. That's something I haven't experienced with knots, so that's something I'd like to see in practice, how you use music to teach knots. Great idea. Kind of gives us a summary, and maybe knots wasn't a more challenging honor to do all this, but can you take these 3 learning styles and hit all 3 of them when teaching the dog honor, the flower honor, the chemistry honor, okay? Keep in mind, that's the idea here, is that to keep those learning styles in mind, and our Pathfinders will enjoy it more. They're going to be engaged more, and they're going to remember the information longer than they would if they didn't. Another thing that we didn't discuss a lot, but I heard a little bit of, was having them teaching others. Pathfinders teaching other Pathfinders really is going to help them remember stuff longer. So if you have any questions for me afterwards, but you're supposed to be in the next meeting in 4 minutes. If you'd like me to sign, bring it up. Thank you for listening. Enjoy the rest of your time at Camp MiVoden.